But, you mentioned Wahlberg and, watching his journey, and, you guys were tag teams, you were known as the Babes. One thing I wanted to know, like, how did that team sort of come to be? Because he's a Sydney guy, you're a Newey guy. Like, how did you guys form that team?
This is good. I was hoping you'd talk about this. So back in the day, there was probably 6 of us, 7 of us. You could say 8. There might even be 10 of us. But like I was just watching on the network a thing about the Ruthless Aggression era and how OVW, and they had that big crop, and it had Cena, Orton, Lesnar, Batista, Shelton, and like it really felt like a new wave. And I think New South Wales wrestling in particular, I'm not going to talk because obviously it's a smaller sort of thing than the whole country, but there was me, and there was Rig, and there was Wahlberg, and there was Ricky, and then there was the Velocities, and there was a few more. There was guys like Tyler Payne and Kai Drake and Lucci, but I felt because we all sort of started similar sort of time, like Rig had a couple of years here. I think Wahlberg and Ricky had a year on me and whatnot, but we all sort of were approaching like a stage of readiness at the same time. And previously, and probably about the time I just started training, it was if you're getting close to ready, we're trying so hard to get you on. And then because we all sort of started at once, it was like, oh, they could cherry pick a little bit more. So we've only got one spot, but there's 6 really good guys. And then me and Wahlberg, we just sort of threw some people like, oh, you're a bit like this guy. He likes basketball and he does this and blah, 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 blah. And I hadn't really even met him, to be honest. I've met him at a show here and there. And then I think I met him for real, like knew who he was. And at it was like an old PWA show, Bishop Summers, I can't speak, Bishop Summers versus Robbie Eagles. And I've met him and we spoke and we're like, listen, I think there's some mileage in a tag team. We're both like tall, like pretty like handsome looking blokes. Like that we have like between the whole group, we are similar. And then it was around the time Harley was wrestling with Rachel Rose at Newey, and they were the Babes, and they were doing like the whole blonde thing, but they were doing more like anyone that doesn't have blonde hair is sort of like a bit like gross. And they were promoters at Newey were looking for like a manager for them, and they thought it would be really funny to have sort of like a skinny little white dude to go out with 2 like beautiful blonde women, which is sort of like the real opposite of how wrestling used to be, which was like obviously the strapping jacked man with the pretty blonde girl. So it was like the roles reversed. And I was obviously 19, 20. I had just got a new girlfriend, and the idea of dyeing my hair blonde terrified me. I didn't want to tell mum. I didn't want to tell dad. Like, I was just terrified of it. And then I debuted as myself, just as Carter Deams, like brown hair, had a match with a guy called Tanner Moe, and had a like pretty good first match, But the second match after me was Snapchat, who turned out to be Tyler Payne versus Matty Wahlberg. And he went out with blonde hair. And it was just like, well, I don't know if he had blonde, but he had the match after me. And they went nuts. Like that, they were just, because I think they trained together, and I think they really wanted to like just have a really good match. And they were doing some crazy spots. And then everyone was like, oh, this Wahlberg dude is really good. And he had like the jersey and the glasses, and he started to look the part. And then he turned out with blonde hair one day. And like, this is exactly what we've been looking for. And him and I had already had like sort of a half conversation about tagging. So then at another house show, he wrestled as him with blonde hair, and I just had brown hair. And we were MBA, we were natural born athletes, and we had a match, and it went really good. Like, we got some really good heat, and I think we were a bit fresh and a bit new, and we had like a lot of new people don't have good ideas, but I think our ideas were a little bit innovative, and we were picking them from the right places. We were watching a little bit of like the revival and stuff, and and we just had a couple of good matches. And then when we got to the main roster, Rachel Rose had sort of left, and it was just Harley and Wahlberg was going out. And then Harley just said to Hoff, can Carter come out too? And he goes, yeah, but he's got to wear a hat. I wore the hat. We did a whole thing. I ended up dyeing my hair blonde, and then that was it. And then I don't really know. It just was like to the races, man. Like, we probably had, I think it was like 3 shows maybe, and then I turn up one day. A funny little story. I was I'd been up all night doing ring crew the night before that, and I was having a sleep in like in the ring.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was on the show, and I knew that we were versing SMS, and there was a run sheet, and it had us losing to SMS in 8 minutes, and we were on like second. And I said to him, bro, we get 8 minutes on the main roster. This is incredible. Yeah. This is the best shit ever. And I messaged him and said, dude, we're fucking on the main show 8 minutes against SMS. And at the time, I think SMS might have even won the tournament the year before that we were going into. It was a qualifying match. And then anyway, I'm like asleep in the ring, and Bonza turns up with a cold bottle of water. He tips it on me, squirts it all over my face, all through the ring. And I'm like, you know, like just waking up, like, what? What do you want? He goes, wake up. I said, why? He goes, because you're fucking main eventing. I was like, oh, what? Like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh shit. But I've seen the run. Like, we've got 2 run sheets, and this is the one we're doing. So I went over, and it was Babes versus SMS, 15 minutes, main event, and then we were underlined. So we were going up, and we were just like, and then
I can just imagine like 2 young guys in the business just going like out of body experience,
because like he was in Sydney, so he was, and I'm like messaging, and like we're messaging each other, going, what the fuck's going on? Like, what the fuck is happening? And because I was against like SMS, and they were like big time at the time. They were like, they just had Kyle Fletcher left to go overseas for the first time, and it was Snapchat and Unsocial Jordan, and they were both great. I think they'd won it the year before. They were like the main sort of tag team, and you know, we were going over, and then it was just one of those instances, man, where every show it seemed we'd turn up and something would just blow our minds. Like we got to the final of Kings of the Castle, and Kings of the Castle was like that was a sick tournament. In like the Nations had won it, the Velocities ended up winning it, SMS won it, I think. So on Lightspeed Express won it. So like Robbie Eagles has won it, Bonds has won it, Mix won it. Like we're talking, it was like the launching pad tournament. It sort of gets referred to as. And we turn up, oh, you know, maybe we'll, you know, we're in the tournament. We're on the like on our first poster, and we ended up winning it. Or just like, bro, what is happening? Like, what is bro, everything was like every show something crazy happens, and we'll get some cool things at PWA. And yeah, suddenly we've got like the Invictus Gauntlets. We've just beat Matt Diamond and Caveman Ugg in the main event of, you know, a Newey Pro show, and me and Wahlberg haven't even been on shows for a year, and we ripped it up, man. Like we had a really good match. Like Matt Diamond and Ugg, they really like, they're great, obviously, but they really like, I think they took the job of putting us over very seriously. I think they really. I have never spoken to them about it, and they must, you know, wrestling's not always that deep, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at least it came off to me that they really took me and Wahlberg seriously, and they did a really good job of putting us over, and they didn't have, you know, they probably could have got the shits and been like, oh, we don't want to lose to the new blokes. Like because like I was like the big baby face in the heavyweight division, and Diamond was like a super baby face in the middleweight division. We had no business being in the ring with them, let alone beating them, but they were like happy to do the job. And man, that was the best. Like Tom, like talk about like things that you'll remember when you're about to die, mate. That's one of those things I'll hold so dearly. Like that, like run, that initial run, just the best. I remember I had it, like I told a girl that I sort of had a crush on. She came to see the first show that she ever came to see. Like you might want, like I think I knew I was wrestling twice, so I was like, it'll be fun to come watch. So I knew I was going to main event. I knew I was going to rip it up. I remember I was one, and me and Wahlberg both did like a shoey on the edge of the apron, and just look. And I think she thought that I might have actually been like John Cena, like you know what I mean? Like I just
you were over, like, brother. You were over.
It's a weird sort of illusion. Like you got like there's probably like 350 people in the building because it's a big final, so it's a lot of people for an Australian wrestling show. 350 is a lot of people, and they're all like, we were heels. They're all on their feet, like booing us, but like sort of cheering at the same time. Yeah, because like they appreciated the heel work, and they sort of appreciated that we were the new guys going over, and it was a big deal. But they were booing, and like, man, it was the best. It was so good.
So it wasn't like the cool heel reaction where it's like the half cheer, half boo, but it's like we'll give you the heat that you just deserve to get.
Well, like it was a rotten finish, and like we beat the 2 biggest baby faces, but like we won. We sort of got a cheer, and then it was booze. Yeah, it was booze. Like, oh fuck.